On August 19th, 1978, 13-year-old Genette Tate set off on a bicycle from her home, Barton Farm Cottage in Aylesbeare in Devon, sometime after 2 p.m, to deliver copies of the Express and Echo newspaper. By 4 p.m. that afternoon, Genette had disappeared without a trace. Despite a mammoth search and an investigation lasting over 40 years, Genette has never been found. This is Crimepedia, and this is the case of Genette Tate. Okay, Morgan, so on the 19th of August 1978, Genette Louise Tate, who was known actually as Ginny, was 13 years old and living in the village of Aylesbeare. Now, Aylesbeare is about 10 miles east of the city of Exeter in the southwest of England. So we're right down the bottom, right southwest. It's a tiny village. So if you were to look at it, say on Google Maps on satellite, you can see that it will probably take you less than a minute to drive through the whole of this little village. It's tiny. It's surrounded by fields and farms and hedgerows and that kind of stuff. And it's one of those villages where everyone knows everyone. The only thing they've got in there is like a pub, a church, that's about community centre. That's about it. But when I say community centre, I kind of mean like church hall. Do you know what I mean? It's a small, tiny village. Now, there's only one lane that leads out of this tiny village onto the main road. And this is a lane called Withen Lane. And back in 1978, the M5 motorway had been built, I think, in 1975. So it was a very new thing to have this huge motorway going through. Now, her parents, John and Sheila, had separated. And Genette was living with her dad and his partner, Violet, and Violet's teenage daughter, Tanya. Now, they lived in a place called Barton Farm Cottage in Aylesbeare. Now, she attended Exmouth Comprehensive School, which is about 10 miles away from where she lived. So she's like a new teen. She was brilliant at maths, quite a clever girl, very shy, like a naturally shy girl, but very sweet. No, there's no problems with her. She had short pixie cut hair, like very boyish. So I honestly think if you was to, I'll put the pictures on our socials. When you look at them, you could mistake her for a boy. She does look a little bit boyish. She was about 5 foot tall, cute little features. She was very pixie-ish, quite a cute girl. Now, on the 19th of August, Genette's dad, John, left the house at around 7:30 in the morning to take Violet to work at the hospital in Exeter. So not very far from Exeter. Like I said, it's a quick drive. He was back home for 10 o'clock to make the two girls breakfast. Tanya was preparing to go on a holiday with her birth father to Cornwall, which is not very far from Devon. It's just across the border, a quick drive. And the girls went up to the post office to get some sweets. At about 12:20, John drove Tanya and her boyfriend to Exeter to catch her coach and then left Genette at home on her own. He then travelled to collect Violet from work, and then they both went and did some shopping in Exeter. And staff at Dingle's department store, I don't think there's a Dingle's there anymore, but there was a Dingle's there. They remember seeing John because he returned a plate that was broken and exchanged it for a new one. So there's people that saw him there. Now, Genette was working that afternoon, so she was 13, and she used to be like a relief paper girl. So when the normal paper boy couldn't do his normal paper round, they would call on Genette and she would go off and do his route and deliver his papers. She set off from her farm cottage about 2 p.m, we think, to deliver the copies of the Express and Echo, which is the local paper. And she was riding a blue Kalkhoff, I think that's how you say it, Kalkhoff bike. And she rode this through Aylesbeare along Withen Lane, right out of the village, onto the A3052, which is the main road that connects Exeter to Sidmouth, which is like a seaside town. It's a very busy seaside town. There was a lot of holiday traffic at the time as she crossed the road. She went to the pub called the White Horse Inn, which is where she met the delivery van with the papers in. And she collected the bundle of papers, put it into it had like a satchel on the back of the bike where she could put all of the stuff in.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then she could go off and deliver the paper. Now, the normal paper boy, obviously, as I said, was not very well, but she followed the same route that he would. So we can kind of follow the route that he did because it was like a one-way kind of route. Now, by about 3:15, Genette had travelled about 2/3 of the way along Withen Lane. She delivered 14 newspapers, and she saw two of her friends down by, like, there was, you go sort of down a little hill and there's like a little bridge there, and she had met her friends Margaret Heavey and Tracy Pratt. Now you might see Margaret sometimes, if you're looking this up on the internet, you might see her sometimes called Maggie. So Maggie and Tracy, if you don't see Margaret. Now the girls chatted and decided to walk back towards Aylesbeare together, because they were all going to go the same way. Genette was pushing her bike because there was like a bit of an incline. So rather than trying to get up the incline on her bike, she pushed her bike to the top and then carried on going. And the two girls were walking behind. She was in sight, we believe, in Maggie and Tracy's sight for about 50 meters until the lane bent around the corner out of view. And about the girls, I mean, the girls are young, obviously, they're her age. Between about 5 and 10 minutes later, the girls came across her bike in the middle of the road. Now, her bike was on its
Oh,
side and the wheels were still spinning, and the newspapers are spilled from the basket on the bike. So, like, this is
okay.
really weird. They just literally just seen her like 5 minutes ago, and
Hmm.
they are looking over the hedgerows, calling out her name, and no sign of her, no sign of her whatsoever. Now, no one
Hmm.
passed the girls. The girls don't remember seeing anyone. They don't remember seeing any cars, nothing. So Genette has just disappeared into thin air.
They
So
didn't hear anything.
they didn't hear anything, nothing.
Okay.
So they picked up the bike. Unfortunately, they picked the bike up. Being young kids, they didn't even think about evidential, stuff. They picked the bike up, took the bike back to Genette's house, and asked Genette's dad if she was there. So he's like, well,
Hmm.
no, she's out delivering her papers. And they say, well, no, we've just seen her and now she's gone. So
Hmm.
Violet, they've now come home from, she's now come home from work. He and Violet began searching the area, but found nothing. Just no trace of her whatsoever. There's no like cardigan left or nothing like that. And so they then call the police at around 5 o'clock. Now, Genette was last seen wearing a white T-shirt with her name embroidered on it in red letters on the left shoulder. She had light brown trousers on and white plimsolls.
Okay.
None of that was found. There was nothing nearby to say, oh,
Hmm.
they found a T-shirt or they found one of her shoes. Absolutely nothing. Now, straight away, obviously, this is a young girl that's completely vanished out of thin air, and so the police hop on this hot straight away. Now, the guy that was in charge of this is a man called Detective Superintendent Eric Rundle. He is a hugely experienced officer and was the second most senior detective in Devon and Cornwall. So he's a big, he's a big guy who's got a lot of history behind him. He's got a lot of experience in what he's doing. And basically, what they did, the detectives below him, they split them into teams. And those teams started to investigate in different areas to try and cover as wide an area as they could. Because when a child goes missing, the first 24 hours are, really, really important.
Hmm.
Now, no one knew what happened to Genette. There were no witnesses. There was, obviously nothing was ruled out from the early stage, but the most likely scenario was that somebody's abducted her. That's the first thing, that we're thinking.
Hmm.
Alongside all the on foot searches, there were underwater search units, there were dog searching units brought in, the dogs were put into like the forest areas that are around it, the ponds that were there, but there was nothing. They found absolutely nothing. And this is where the theory of perhaps her being a runaway came into it.
Okay.
But all of her personal possessions were at home, including
Yeah.
money that she had saved up for a holiday. So she hasn't taken any of her possessions. She's not taken any money with her. All her clothes are still at home. And she was going around doing a paper round. You wouldn't just drop your bag in your
Yeah.
bike and then just decide to leave.
And you said that she's gone through 2/3 of the route, and she had
Yeah,
delivered papers, right?
that's right. Yeah.
Why would you, if you're going to run away, why'd you go, oh, you know what? I'm about, a third away from being done delivering papers. I'm just going to drop my bike and take off.
And go. That's right. And like
That
literally
makes
within
no.
5 minutes of the girl seeing her just before.
Yeah. And just go back, and she was heading back towards her
Back
home. So
towards,
she was on
yeah.
Within Lane heading back towards her home. So once again, if she's going to be running away, why would she go all the way down
Yeah, of
and head
course.
back and then decide. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and eliminate runaway right away.
Straight away. Yeah, so straight
Not
away.
yeah.
Now, the local vicar even held a 24-hour confessional just in case somebody had a prick of conscience and decided they wanted to confess something, or if they had
Yeah.
any information they wanted to pass on in confidence, they could go and see him and he would then relay that to the police. But there was
Mhm.
nothing until a witness came forward, a lady called Mrs. Matilda Rogers. Now, she was a policeman's wife and she was from
Yeah.
Hull, which is upcountry. Her and her daughter, who was 14, were on holiday in Devon at the time and staying
Okay.
in a cottage in Withen Lane. So they came
Okay.
forward and told police that they saw the girls in the lane. So they saw all three girls together shortly before Genette disappeared, but had also seen a man in a car. Now,
Okay.
she told police that on that day, her and Gail had been walking back from Aylesbeare towards their holiday home in Withen Lane when they saw Genette talking to the two girls at the bridge. They then carried on walking away from the village and saw a man driving a maroon coloured car. Now, this was heading
Mhm.
along Withen Lane in the direction of the three girls and would have
Okay.
passed them on the lane close to where Genette went missing. But the
Okay.
girls don't say anything about this car.
Okay. And okay. So this is what I'm gonna say real quick. So
Okay.
as you're telling the story, I'm looking at Witherland. You know I love
Yep.
maps.
Yep. I know.
Um, and you can't really get a sense of this lane just looking at like the overhead map. So I did like,
No.
there's actually street view.
Yeah.
It is tiny. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So if a car is going one direction on Witham Lane, they
Yes.
have to go continue that way for the most part. For the most part, they would have to continue going that way. I mean, yeah, there are some like I don't know what you would call them. I know that we've done other cases where there's actually a name, but basically,
There's like
they have this
passing
little
spots.
yeah, yeah, or like farm lanes, right? So these
Yeah.
lanes where you can get your farm equipment back to the
Mhm.
different fields.
Mm.
So yeah, there are some of those, but so this person would have to have gotten her and then got in the car, turned around, been able to find
Yeah.
one of these turnaround spots,
Yeah.
and out without anyone seeing them, and b before these other girls caught
Yeah.
up to where it was. Which obviously, if the bike wheel is still spinning,
Yeah.
chances are that this had happened within
Couple
moments.
of minutes.
A
That's right.
couple minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the man in the maroon car, now this car was believed to be a Triumph 1300 or possibly a car with fins. So it was described as being
Okay.
a young man who was a smart appearance with dark hair. Now the investigation team then began questioning sex offenders in the area. All the known sex offenders, obviously, because it's a young girl that's gone missing. So that's the first thing they did. And nothing, no obvious suspects. There was nothing that would lead them to believe that one of those men, like Devon and Cornwall, I've been reading about this recently. It's prolific with sex offenders for some reason.
Really?
Well, just historic cases I've been reading about.
Yeah.
It seems that this shit goes on a whole ton, that
Yeah.
more than you know. It's just horrific. It's horrible. Um Now, John himself, this is the dad, he had been asked to account for his movements. Now, I remember this case. I remember this as I was growing up. I remember it's been talked about when you talk about cases in the Southwest. And I remember something in the back of my mind about the dad, them thinking that the dad had something to do with this for quite a long time. However, he had a cast iron alibi. He was in places that he said he was. People have come forward to verify the fact that yes, he was there. He was with his partner, and
Yeah.
so that that sort of ruled him out in effect. Now they searched all the grassland, all the gauze areas for Genette. They searched, like I said, ponds, they searched dense woodland and actually had nothing. So they decided, because they had nothing, they held daily press conferences. They did reenactments at the scene, which you can see if you
Okay.
Google Genette on in Google, you'll see a lot of the pictures are actual reenactments, because obviously we
Okay.
know that the girls picked the bike up and took it away with them, but you can actually see
Mm,
quite a lot of reenactments where the bike's on its side and all the stuff is spilling out.
yeah.
And they also did a body double, cycling along Withen Lane on a bicycle so that it might just sort of jog someone's memory, but nothing. They even called in the Royal Marines. They even called in the Marines to
Oh,
try and help
wow.
with this. So it was a huge, huge investigation, but
Yeah.
still nothing. So I wanted to look at the different theories. Now, this case, I will warn you before you go on to Google and look at this case is full of conspiracy theories. And I mean
Yeah.
like proper rabbit holes. There's so many different conspiracy theories about this case. I'm just going to go through the most talked about. So the runaway theory, I think we can rule that one out straight away.
Yeah, yeah.
So the most, I would say, probably the suspect that people talk about most, and the suspect that police believed was responsible for Genette going missing, is a man called Robert Black. And
Okay.
he was arrested in 1990 in the Scottish borders after abducting a child. Now, he was born in 1947 and he was given up for adoption by his mum when he was 6 months old.
Mhm.
He was continuously sexually abused by his foster father. He was put into care at 11 when his foster mum died. And then he was abused by staff while in the care of the state. Now, he was released and was worked as a butcher's boy when he was about 15. And he went on to become a prolific abuser of young girls by the time he was 15 and a convicted dangerous child sex attacker by the time he was 19. So this
Okay.
dude is not a nice man.
No.
I mean, straight off from, I wanted to tell you about his background a little bit because I think that kind of builds the story a little bit to know what
Yeah.
kind of guy this guy is. Now, in 1968, he headed to England, the south of England, and he passed his driving test and got a job as a poster delivery driver. He basically went all over the UK as a driver, also Ireland, into Europe, and really it was the perfect job for a paedophile because he was in different areas all the time. He used all of the networks, all of the motorway networks he could use. He could abduct people and leave without anybody knowing he was around.
Mm.
He His preferred method to abduct girls and children was to leave a main road and snatch kids in small areas. Now, Aylesbeare was close to the M5, obviously,
Yeah.
which linked you to the Midlands. It also links you up to Wales. It links you all over the place. The M5 is a huge motorway that goes all the way through, through the whole of the southwest. So it's a very, very good motorway to be going down to reach lots of different areas. Um,
Yeah.
Now, in 1994, he was convicted of the kidnap, rape, and murder of 3 girls, and he was sentenced to life in prison. All the crimes had been committed in the 80s, and each crime had similarities to Genette's case. So there was a young girl called Susan Maxwell. She was 11. She was abducted, sexually assaulted, and murdered on July the 30th, 1982.
Mhm.
He disposed of her body 264 miles away from where he took her.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we had Caroline Hogg, who was 5. She disappeared on July the 8th in 1983. Her body was found 310 miles away. We've got Sarah Harper, who she disappeared 1986. So she disappeared in 1986. She was
Mhm.
10 and she vanished after she went to buy bread, and he dumped her body 71 miles away.
So he would abduct and then
Yes.
get out. Okay.
Yeah, basically. Now, his arrest and his conviction attracted national attention. And so the detectives from Devon and Cornwall questioned him about Genette, but he didn't admit to any of the crimes. And
Yep.
he was very, very careful not to implicate himself at all. But by the end of the 90s, the detective in the Genette Tate case had
Mhm.
decided that he was the most likely suspect in the case. So they
Okay.
presented a file in 2007 to the Crown Prosecution Service asking to bring charges against him for her disappearance. But there was insufficient evidence.
Yeah.
There's not enough evidence that basically to say that the
Mhm.
bloke could have been in that area at that time doesn't mean
Yeah.
to say that he did take her.
Mm.
So that's that basically what I've just said, the fact that he was in the area at the time is the most evidence that they've got. That's it.
It Okay, and when you say he was in the area,
Yeah.
like where was he?
He was in the southwest at the time. I
but
think it
just
was
southwest.
Exeter Airport. So Exeter's not very far from Aylesbeare. So they
Hmm.
think he was in Exeter Airport on the 19th of August. So on,
Okay.
when she went missing.
And
So
obviously he had access to a car at the time, right?
yeah, of course. So he had access to a car. He was
Mm.
seen to be behaving suspiciously on the 19th of August 1978 in
Okay, so
Exeter. So 10 miles away from where she's from.
the one thing that kind of, I don't want to say pushes me away from this guy,
Yeah.
but makes me question it is, once again, this Witham Lane is okay. It's not the best place to be. I don't want hunting. I guess I don't know how else to put it. To be watching for kids because of how small the lane is,
Yeah.
because all the hedgerows,
Yeah.
because of how it kind of twists and turns.
Mm.
So you don't have. So it's not like he's sitting at the end of a street and he could see a mile down or whatever, straight street, and then he's like, okay, there's some kids walking up this way.
Yeah.
So he would have to have known that they were there somehow. So either passed them in a car, which the two other girls did not say anything about a car passing,
No, they
right?
didn't. No.
Which which on this street you would know if someone passed you.
Yeah, definitely.
So he would have to either pass them in a car, had seen them pass in a car while he was parked somewhere,
Mm.
but then like where her bike was, it was around a corner, and so how would he would just have to have been really, really lucky, I think, in this case,
Mm.
to have just happened to come across Genette.
Yeah, I mean, obviously his MO is that he takes children from areas that are quiet,
Yeah.
sleepy areas, because I think
Mhm.
also a lot of parents, because everybody knows everyone in their village, they're more likely to let their kids go out alone because there's not a
Mhm.
lot of traffic, there's not a lot of people coming through, and so it's safer, or it's perceived as being safer.
Yeah.
So
But
I can
I
see,
think
yeah,
my point is that this is probably this one lane,
yeah,
or where she was caught, is probably not the best place for someone to be, looking for a child to take.
that's right, yeah.
There'd be better places. I
And like
mean,
you say, I think it's weird the turning around because it's a single track lane. So it's a single vehicle
mhm,
lane. You would have to pull into like the places where the farm gates are so that another vehicle could pass you. Turning around
yeah.
there is going to at least be a 3-point turn, at least. It'd be,
Well,
you know,
I'm looking at like some of these recreation photos where they have the
yeah,
bike laying out in the lane. The
yeah, yeah.
bike takes up, a good 3/4 of the lane. If a
And
bike
it's,
is
yeah, a
covering that
small
much of
kid's
the
bike.
lane, a
Yeah,
car is not going to be able to turn around easily. They
no,
can.
yeah.
I
But
mean, because like
it won't be quickly.
where this bike was, it looks like there's some like brush, and then you can see a
Yeah,
hedgerow behind it.
yeah.
But that's going to take a while for them to
Mm.
get that thing around.
Unless
And it
he was
also
parked
looks
facing
like
the other way.
that's true. Now the other thing, it looks like the road at the time was probably like, I don't know, crushed gravel. It kind of looks like old, like a rural road,
Yeah.
where if a car is driving on it, you would see the dust
Yes.
from it
Yeah.
lifting,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that dust kind of it stays there for a while after cars drive
Mm.
through it. So that's something
Yeah.
that the two girls should have noticed. Like, oh yeah, there was dust from a car still in the air.
Just remember that she was the relief paper girl as well. So this route would
Yeah.
have been normally taken by the boy, by the paper boy. It was just this
Hmm.
day that he couldn't do it and she stepped in. So this is not like somebody would have watched her specifically
Yeah.
making this route and doing
Oh
these
yeah.
drops because she doesn't normally do it. So this
Yeah.
route would have normally been done by the boy. And Robert Black's victims are all girls. They're all
Girls.
sexually abducted,
Hmm.
all sexually abused, and then murdered. So that
Yeah.
also made me think, well, hang on a minute. If somebody had been specifically waiting for her, they would have need to have known that she was covering that day.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that struck straight away to me was that she's the relief paper girl. She doesn't
Yeah.
usually do this. Although she steps in for him regularly, this is not something that she does all the time.
So wouldn't it be someone who has been watching for a while?
That's what I was thinking.
And this is the
Yeah.
moment that, okay, I'm gonna go now and I'm gonna grab her.
Yeah. Could this be that this is somebody who knew her and knew that she was covering this day and knew the route she would have been
Mhm.
taking,
Yeah.
and so then could have waited where they knew she was coming back and could have got her then?
Yeah.
Also, the
Yeah.
other thing about Robert Black is the fact that his MO was to just dump bodies wherever he would dump them, and Jeanette's never been
Yeah.
found. Her body's never been found.
Mm.
He wasn't like a really clever criminal that would go and like hide these bodies so that no one ever finds them. He would just dump them like rubbish.
I have this really bad thought of,
Mm,
like, these 2 girls coming across the bike and seeing the wheel spinning and everything,
mm,
and just imagining, like, Jeanette behind one of these hedgerows with the guy that, like, grabbed her,
well, yeah, yeah,
you know? Like, they
yeah,
could've like, he could've been right there. She could've been right
yeah,
there, and her friends
yeah.
are like, where is she?"
Where is she?
She could've
That's
been on
right.
the other side of the hedgerow.
Yeah. Well, she could,
'Cause
and
I
then
don't
they
know.
walk the other way.
'Cause I don't know. I have a hard time believing that a car is involved in this one.
Oh, really?
I do. I mean, I do have okay. So my initial thought when were talking about the bike in the lane,
Hmm.
my first thought was like, oh well, because of how this lane is, maybe she was going around this little bend in the lane, and then there was a car coming, and the car hit her bike, and
Mm.
she and was killed.
Yeah.
And then instead of you know doing what any normal person would do and call for help,
Yeah.
call for the police or call for an ambulance. They freak out and they just throw her in the car and take off, right? That was
Yeah.
my first thought.
Yeah.
But then I keep talking myself out of this whole idea of a car being able to be on that lane,
Mm.
grab her, and being
Mm.
able to get out without the two of the girls ever seeing it.
See, that's interesting that you say that because my initial thought was the same. My initial thought was, what if this was a local person,
Uh huh.
maybe like a farmer who was pulling out of this farm lane that hit her
Hmm.
because they weren't paying attention, that then
Yep.
thought, shit, oh my God, that's John Tate's daughter. Oh my God, I'm in trouble because she's dead.
Yeah. Yep.
Picked her up, chucked her in the back of their Land Rover or whatever, which would have been possibly facing the right way, and then
Hmm.
drove off and disposed of her on their farm somewhere. I'm not sure that the police checked every single acre of every single farm
Yeah.
in that area.
Hmm. Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about, a vast area of farms. Is it possible that she was disposed of on one of those farms in a slurry pit
Mm.
in,
Yeah.
farm? That was my first thought looking through this. This is what I thought, that perhaps it was an accident. That's why they saw the bike on the floor and the person's just left the bike
Yeah.
and gone. I know that the bike wasn't damaged, so I know that it wasn't damaged, but that doesn't mean to say that they
Okay.
didn't knock her over and
Hmm.
hurt her, you know?
Yeah.
So
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
So that was my
Oh.
theory. So it's interesting that you said that too. Now, John Tate, Jeanette's dad, doesn't believe that Robert Black killed his daughter either. Because he says there's
Okay.
no evidence that the police have got linking him. All they have is what he did in the past. But Devon and
Uh
Cornwall remain certain that he had something to do with it.
huh.
Now, they
Fine.
also
Okay.
had rumours of paedophilic activity and occult practices because there's always something
Oh.
about the occult. It's always
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same
Yeah.
way, isn't it? They're
Hmm.
searching for satanic rituals and things like that. That also happened. And one man even believed that she'd been abducted by UFOs and would be returned
Oh, get
someday.
out of here. Get out of here.
There's always one,
No.
isn't there? There were
Okay.
plenty of
So
psychics before we
okay.
go.
So
Yeah.
so we can eliminate her running away. Okay.
Yes, I believe so. Yes.
Okay. You gave me 2 sentences, not even 2 sentences on UFOs, but we can eliminate that right away,
I
right
think we
now.
can eliminate.
Gone.
I think we can eliminate the UFOs. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, a
Oh
man
my
from
God. Yeah.
Honiton, this guy called Melvin Brady, believes
Okay.
that this case has been littered with red herrings. He believes that Jeanette was murdered the day she went missing and her body was dumped in a place called Woodbury Woods. Now, his theory is that a member of the armed forces, possibly he believes a soldier who was based at Taunton but was doing training near Exeter, said that he was involved because he used to play darts and he was at this pub called the Tucker's Arms in Dalwood 2 days after
Okay.
Jeanette went missing. He worked for a company in Axminster, and he popped into the pub to get a packet of cigarettes. He said whilst he was in there, this man came in and looked really shifty. He said he was up to no good. You could tell he wasn't from around this area. He was about 30
Uh-huh.
years old. He had dyed black hair with bushy eyebrows and blue eyes. And he said he remembers that he was wearing a white t-shirt with rolled up sleeves, black trousers, and brown shoes. And he said
Okay.
he was acting really strange. He parked his car on the corner and not right outside the pub, which is strange, he said. And
Okay.
he said that when the police released this photo fit of the man that the woman had already given them a
Yeah.
description
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
he matched that description perfectly. He said the only thing the police got wrong was the make of the car. Now, I'm not being sexist, but women, I don't think, are as good at recognizing makes and models of vehicles as men.
Oh,
So like my
okay.
husband, well, certainly in my case, that's the case. I can tell you what color a car was and possibly what it is, but my husband will look at something and go, "Oh, that's a blah 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 blah." And I'll be like, "How the
Yeah.
hell did you know that? I need to get up close to it to see the badge." Whereas he will know just by looking at it what it is.
Yeah. Okay.
So I look at what the lady said as the car that she described. So that could be that she said it was possibly the make of car that she said. But this
Okay.
guy
Yeah.
says it wasn't a maroon Triumph. It wasn't a maroon Triumph. It was a chocolate coloured Alfa Romeo Spider, which had been modified, had a vinyl roof with low wheels and a low sump. And that's an oil. I think that's an
Hmm.
oil pan over there. Low oil. I think an oil pan is a sump. I think that's
Okay.
the same thing. Um, and he says that this guy was talking and he was believed he was on his way back to Taunton. Had originally come from Sussex, but he believes that he was in the armed forces. Now, we do have Exeter does have a Royal Marine. I think they have a Royal Marine base. There's a lot of Army and Royal Marines around here. North Devon has a Royal Marine base as well. So there is a lot of Army and, that kind of activity around here.
Yeah.
So this guy was bothered by this man, really bothered by him. And he went to the police and said that he had vital information. He went to Hevertree Road Police Station, which is the big police station down here, and told them. But he said nobody involved in the investigation was available to see him. So he left his details and all the information he could, but nobody's ever contacted him to take a formal statement, which I
Hmm.
think is a bit weird.
Yeah. No,
Now,
no, absolutely.
so Devon and Cornwall police say that his information has not been able to assist the inquiry. That's all they've said. The information he's given has not been able to assist the inquiry, and that's the end of that.
Okay.
So that's strange. So that is one possible person. The other
Yeah.
one I found in a newspaper article it's called Scotland on Sunday, and there were claims in that newspaper article that Peter Tobin was to be questioned about Genette's disappearance. Now, Peter Tobin is a convicted paedophile. He is not a very nice guy. He was found guilty in 2008 of killing a Polish student whose body he buried underneath a Glasgow church. He was also convicted of the murder of Vicky Hamilton in December 2008, which
Okay.
resulted in the minimum sentence that he already had being increased to 30 years. And then he was convicted of the murder of Dinah McNichol, and she was in 2009.
Okay.
Now, apparently, he lived on the South Coast during the 70s, fitting insulation in homes and businesses. Now, because obviously he was a convicted paedophile, they believe that perhaps he had something to do with it, although nothing has ever come of that either.
Hmm. Hmm.
So the next theory is
Okay.
the two girls.
Oh.
So this is the
Okay.
next theory, in that the two girls claimed they found Genette's bike with the wheels still turning whilst in the middle of the lane and panicked. They claimed that their first thought was that she'd been abducted by a UFO.
Oh. Ugh.
But isn't that strange? Don't you think that's strange that guy came forward to say that she had been abducted by a UFO?
Yeah.
And the first thought of these two young girls is that she's been abducted by a UFO.
That is ridiculous.
Why would they even think that at the ages of like 13? Why did that come into
Uh,
it?
I don't know.
So there are claims from different people on places like Reddit and web sleuths and that kind of thing that perhaps
Yeah.
these two girls aren't quite as innocent as they think, or they're withholding information because somebody they saw in the lane is somebody that they know.
Mm,
And that
okay.
maybe, I think that is more possible than the UFO.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there, there is also, this is bizarre. There is also a website. Now, this website is called, it's Robert Cracknell, psychic detective, and he
Oh my
reports on
god.
his website that the day after she disappeared, that a small power electricity station exploded in exactly the same lane where her bicycle was discovered. Now, he says,
Okay.
was she buried in that spot? And the killer thought it would be an ideal way to destroy a child's body by blowing up the electricity station.
Oh, okay.
And then, this was crazy. Then he talks about Ginny's dad sexually abusing his daughter as well as
Oh
his young
fuck.
stepchild.
Get out of here.
But he actually admitted to doing that.
What?
I know.
W- Okay.
So basically, both girls were aged under 13 during the time he assaulted them. He was only forced to inform the police when this medium astonishingly claimed that he had been in contact with Genette and she had told him that her dad had been abusing her for years.
And then the dad said, "Yeah, it's true."
The dad confessed to the police and it was reported. And I then searched online for this confession, and it seems that it has been verified that yes, he did, and the stepdaughter has come forward and said yes, that is true.
What? I mean,
Yeah,
what?
I know. That's exactly what I did. I literally did that.
Okay.
I was like, "What? Oh, what? Hang on, that can't be right." And then I went and looked into it some further, and he has actually confessed to police that that's what he did. But he didn't. He wasn't. I don't know why he wasn't. Punished for that. I don't know why he wasn't convicted of it. All I could find on the internet was that he wasn't convicted of anything because of the upset it would cause the family. And they'd already been through enough upset with her missing, but no charges were brought against him.
Well, but when it gets out into the public,
Yeah.
it's going to upset the family.
Well, exactly. But that's the only reason he was only forced to inform the police when this medium claimed that he had been in contact with Jeanette, and that's what she told him. Now
Okay.
that's
Well, then
you know
maybe Jeanette. Okay. So then maybe the possibility of Jeanette running away kind of increases then.
Yes, this is exactly what I thought. Could this be that but then would she leave her bike like that? Did she just put it up on the side? Did she? I don't know. But that just twists this case
Yeah. What if?
completely.
Okay. So let's go and what if she got help from somebody
Yes,
to escape?
to disappear. Yeah.
And what if that person, I mean, had good intentions? Maybe that person had bad intentions.
Mm.
But then once again, we'd have to get back to the point of how does she get out of that area without anyone noticing a vehicle?
And why would she just leave her bike on the side of the road? Surely she would meet somebody somewhere and then go, you know? If I was planning to help a kid get away, I would take the bike too. I wouldn't just leave it on the floor in the middle of a field just 5 minutes after she's seen her friends,
Yeah. What
So
if the
that
friends? Then
again,
what if the friends were in it? What if they helped her, and that's why they have this horrible thought of, or this
yeah.
explanation of she was abducted by aliens?
Mm. Strange, isn't it?
I don't know now.
No, I know. There's a website. If you want to go and have a look at it, it's a very in-depth website. It's called
Uh huh.
JenetteInvestigation.wordpress.com. Now, on this website, I'm not going to go into the whole thing about it, but I'm just going to give you the brief outline. There was a witness that the police don't seem to be doing anything about. And this witness has since come forward, and this Genette investigation website, they're trying to get it, people have tried to get it shut down because they're basically outing everybody that they can that might have something to do with this case. And on this website, there is a section where this witness has come forward and he obviously now an adult. I mean, this was like 40 odd years ago. Now he's an adult. He's come forward and said that on the bus going to school in the morning, there was huge amounts of sexual abuse amongst children, amongst each other. And he was
Oh,
actually sexually abused at the back of the bus by two girls.
okay.
So, I mean, there's a lot to go through, and I'm not going to go through it all because there is a lot. If you look at this website, it will tell you all about this boy talking about what happened, how that they kept quiet. He also said that he was sexually abused by these two girls at the back of the bus. The parents had noticed that there was something not quite right with him. He was very disheveled, quite upset, very tearful when he got
Uh-huh.
home from school. He opened up and told his parents what happened. And the two girls, they believe these two girls are well known to the investigation as well, sexually assaulted him at the back of the bus. Now,
Oh,
he said that this is something that happened. I mean, these kids were like 13 years old,
yeah.
but I'm not saying that this is the definite truth. I'm not saying it's not the definite truth, but you've got to remember that when when people are abused, they do sometimes go on to be an abuser. So
Yeah.
is there a possibility that perhaps these two girls went on to abuse somebody else?
Oh. Huh. Wow.
So I told you, this is a total rabbit hole case.
Yeah, it is.
All these different things are
Interesting.
now starting to come up. Now, the last one that I've got for you is a convicted murderer called Ian Bealey, which is quite funny
Okay.
if you're British and watch EastEnders, because there's a character called Ian Beale, and this guy's called Ian Bealey. So I did have a little chuckle to myself when I read that. Now, his time frame basically at 2:30 p.m. on the 19th of August 1978, Bealey does his last job at a farm about 7 miles away from Aylesbeare. He
Okay.
was working for the artificial insemination unit near Exeter Airport, which is about a mile from Aylesbeare. Now, I don't know if this is artificially inseminating people or artificially inseminating cows. You know, like, or like,
I'm gonna
I'm
say
going to go with
cows.
farms. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So that's what I'm guessing. So he was working for that unit, and according to Detective Fursland, within this investigation, it was established that Ian Bealey left the farm premises at around 2:30 to 2:45. Now, the investigation in the mid sort of early to mid 80s timed his movements in detail to the very minute. Now, they did trial runs, they did timings, they did reruns, and there's a gap in their findings between 3 and 3:45.
Okay.
Now, this is 3/4 of an hour where this guy can't be accounted for. He turns up at the AI unit and he fills out an accident report form because earlier that day he was in a state of nervous tension and crashed into a police car. So
Oh.
he is also a convicted murderer, and he was in the area on the right day at around the right
Mhm.
time. Could it have anything to do with him? Again,
Well,
possibly.
it's a better suggestion than aliens.
Yeah. Well, yeah, slightly.
Ah, man, I don't know.
Now,
You said it's
unfortunately,
40 you said it was 45 minutes that he was
45 minutes
unaccounted for?
between 3 and 3:45, he's unaccounted for. They can't count for him anywhere.
Okay.
So that's odd. Now, in 2020, John Tate passed away. He was 77, so Genette's dad passed away. He had been very ill. He was living in Manchester and he had a major stroke previously that left him sort of bedridden. He was also, he had lots and lots of things wrong with him, and he had prostate cancer. He was in a wheelchair,
Mhm.
and unfortunately, in 2020, he passed away. So he never got to find out what happened to his daughter. But I
Mhm.
kind of lost any sympathy for him the minute he came forward and said that he had sexually abused her. So
Yeah.
there's also reports that I read to say that when the two girls alerted John that his daughter had passed away, he was not panicking. He wasn't like, where the hell is she? He was very like nonplussed, or she's out doing her bike, and they said, well, no, we've got the bike. And he was
Yeah.
like not actually that bothered that she hadn't come home. So there was
Uh,
There's different reports. Some reports say he immediately went looking for her. Other reports say
yeah.
that it wasn't a happy home. She wasn't happy at home because of obviously what was happening to her. And so he wasn't really that fussed until it came to 5 o'clock and she hadn't still come home. And his partner had said to him, "We really need to call the police."
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I could understand him not freaking out right away. I mean, you
Of
have two
course.
girls like,
Yeah.
hey, we found Jeanette's bike, and she's nowhere around. So maybe he's thinking, oh, he ran off to go play somewhere, or
Yeah.
she ran off with some friends and just left her bike.
That's right. She's 13. So she's not,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't.
But as yet, all these many years later, from 1978 to now, there has been nothing. There's nothing at all. She literally has just disappeared into thin air. There's no evidence on the floor of any blood, any signs of a struggle, other than the fact that her bike's on the floor.
yeah.
And again, I mean, the two girls that we've got that are near enough first on scene, are their timings correct? Did they only take 5 minutes to walk up the hill? They're 13.
Hmm.
Did they see a car but just didn't even think about it? Was there a car up ahead of them? My thought is that perhaps there was a car parked in a farm gate or something, and
Yeah.
it's maybe just an opportunistic thing that they've come across her, and it's like, whoa,
Hmm.
here we go. She's on her own. She's by
Which,
herself.
yeah, which would tell me that it's someone local.
See, that was what I
For
was
me, it'd be
thinking.
yeah, because if they're sitting on this random ass lane,
Mhm.
right?
But
It
then if
has to
you're a
be someone
delivery driver
local.
in the area and you've just pulled
Okay.
over,
Yeah.
and if you're Robert Black and you've just pulled over and oh my God, here comes like what is my luck? Here comes a young girl on a bicycle all by herself. She does look, I think she looks a lot younger than 13 because if you look at his victims are like 10, 5, 11. They're all
Yeah.
very young, whereas she's 13, but she does look a lot
And
younger than 13.
and she also does have a boyish appearance as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, is it that somebody was waiting for the boy and it was the girl and they've abducted
Yeah.
her by accident? Is it that they were just pulled over and
Uh-huh.
along came this lone girl by herself and they've just gone for it? Or
Mhm.
is it that somebody's helped her get away? She's being sexually abused by her
Yeah.
dad. Her home life is not happy. The sister's also being sexually abused. Could she be living somewhere and she's, doesn't want to go back to him, doesn't want to go back home because it's not a nice place to
But
be.
at this point, with her father being passed away, if that's the case, and if she was still alive, I
Mm,
don't see why she wouldn't come forward.
maybe,
Unless that's what happened and she died elsewhere at another
possibly.
time.
Yeah. I mean, Jeanette's mum was still alive. When I checked, as far as I
Uh-huh.
know, her mum is still alive. And they have
But
got
it
they
could
have got a grave for Jeanette. There is actually an empty grave for her.
okay, yeah. Maybe she blames her mom as well. I don't know.
Maybe for leaving. Maybe because her
Okay.
mum obviously she doesn't live with her mum. Maybe she just wanted to get away.
So I know for a fact aliens did not abduct her.
Yeah, I think it's pretty
I
safe
know
to
that.
say there was no UFO.
If I were to okay, so to take that off the board. If I were to rank it right now,
Yeah.
like what I think happened to her,
Hmm.
I still have this thought of it being an accident and her being hidden.
Mm.
It's
Rather than a
probably
murder.
yeah, rather than a abduction murder. I think
Yeah.
that would be for me. I see that as a stronger possibility than abduction murder.
Mm.
I also find the thought of these two girls not being as innocent as they might appear, being involved somehow.
You do?
I do. I don't know
Do
why.
you? Okay.
What if well, I don't know these two girls. I don't know who
No.
they are. I don't know
No.
anything about them. We have we have someone who said that they were sexually abusive,
Mm.
possibly on a school bus. Is it possible that these two girls weren't as friendly with Jeanette as
Yeah.
we might believe?
Mm.
Were these two girls that were more of bullies
Mm.
than friends, right?
Mm.
Did they do something which caused harm to Jeanette?
Mm.
And so that's a possibility.
But where would they have put her?
Or
Because I mean, we're talking about
that,
two
yeah,
13-year-old girls, and
that's the thing.
there's not a lot of area for them to be able
Hmm.
to pick up and carry a girl's body and get rid of her, so that when the police start searching within a few hours, no one finds her.
Hmm.
I mean, they were
That's
crawling
true.
everywhere. And that's what makes me think of vehicles
Mm,
involved, because they looked
they have,
everywhere for her.
you'd have to get her body out
Out.
somehow.
And that's what made me initially think of, like you said, the accident. That made me think that
Hmm.
perhaps it's somebody local who knows Genette, that hit Genette, or something happened to Genette,
Yeah,
and they've taken her away and got rid of her. That
yeah.
also, because obviously, if there was any damage to the vehicle, the police aren't looking for, they're only looking for this vehicle that this woman says about. They're not looking
Hmm.
for any old vehicle. They've just literally got this one that she
This
says,
maroon Triumph.
this maroon Triumph that's got fins possibly. What if that
Well,
had nothing to do
that
with
is a
it whatsoever?
very well. That's a very specific car to be like. Okay, I saw the
Yeah,
car.
yeah.
Why would she lie about that?
No, I don't think she's lying. Maybe she did see that car. Maybe she did see it.
Not, but not at that. Maybe not at the time.
That's right.
It
And
might have been
maybe,
another time.
yeah. Or maybe she did see that car. That car was there, but had absolutely nothing to do with Jeanette's disappearance.
And you said they were just there on holiday or something, right?
Yeah, she was on holiday. Yeah, staying in with
Why the hell do you holiday there?
It's a nice area. It's not far from like Sidmouth. It's not far from the beach. It's quite
All
close to
right.
Cornwall. So yeah, it's
Hmm.
not bad.
That's suspicious to me.
Oh, come on.
I'm putting her as a suspect.
The
Why
policeman's
would
wife.
you holiday on Witham Lane or whatever?
I don't think it's got.
No one
I don't think
holidays
she's
on
got.
Witham Lane.
I don't think she's got anything to do with it. You know.
All right. Maybe she does. She's just as viable as aliens.
Well, that's true. And her husband's a policeman, so he would know how to cover it up.
I don't know. I still want to say I feel like accident and then hiding
Yeah,
her body.
I
That's what I'm
believe.
feeling. I
Yeah,
don't know
that's how I
why.
feel. No, I agree with you. I think unless this was a complete fluke, I think
It's,
realistically we've got three possibilities. You've got either somebody was waiting, knowing that
yep.
she was going to be going that way, abducted
Which would
her
be,
and took her
yeah.
away. That's one.
It's
So
it
two,
is,
there was
yeah.
an accident and somebody's panicked, taken her
Uh-huh.
car into taken her body into the car and left.
Yep. Yep.
And I think realistically that's going to be the only two.
Oh, I thought you had
It's an
3.
or it's an opportunistic one where somebody was just pulled over and seen her, and it just so happens they're a paedophile or a murderer, or have got those sort of tendencies, and they've just thought, great, let's just abduct her. That's really, I mean, realistically, no one's
And
going
we
to
know
carry her. Realistically, no one's going to walk up Witham Lane with her over their shoulder because somebody is
mhm,
going to see them. So I'm thinking it's got to be a vehicle. Those police were quick on, they were really, really quick on the beat
yeah.
to search for her.
And we know for a fact that this Robert Black was at the airport that day.
We know that he was there. Well, they think that they've got this receipt saying that Robert Black, they believe that he was in the area of Exeter Airport at the
Okay.
time. So,
Okay. Okay. So
yeah.
hypothetically, what if it was him, but it was a fluke? Okay. So hear me out.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you look at a map at Exeter Airport
Mm.
and if you head like south over that A30,
Yeah.
that's B3184,
Yep.
which turns into Marwood Lane,
Yep.
which goes right to the little town. What is it called again?
Aylesbeare.
Aylesbeare.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's really the first little town that you get to.
Yeah.
So, what if he turns into that town?
Yeah.
He gets to that first street that you can really turn on, which is
Mhm.
Within Lane,
Yeah.
and then
He
I
just
mean,
pulled.
I
Yeah.
guess
That's right.
hypothetically, oh, there she is. But then once again, we have to get to explain how he was able to turn around and get out of there as quickly as possible.
Or he came off of the A3052, the main road, had a
Okay.
delivery in that area, drove
Okay.
up Within Lane, going back towards her house, and had pulled in
Oh.
ahead of her. She's coming up
Oh.
with or
Uh-huh.
talking to her friends. I'm not being mean towards children who are witnesses. But if those three girls are stood talking at the bridge, they haven't
Oh,
mentioned seeing that woman and her daughter, although that woman and her daughter saw them. If a van or a car had driven past them previously before she went
mhm.
missing, would they have noticed? Would that be something that was in
Oh,
their mind? A delivery van or a
no.
delivery, somebody driven by before Genette went missing, 5-10 minutes before, would they have noticed? No. So if he had then gone up Withen Lane and had parked up, maybe, I don't know, it's lunchtime. Was he eating his sandwiches in the car? I mean, I know
Yeah,
delivery drivers that they don't go off into cafes and stuff. So was he sat there eating something and he's
yeah,
seen her on her own coming up the lane and has then thought, oh my God, rich picking. She's by herself. No
yeah.
one's around.
Mm,
He's grabbed her, chucked her in. I mean, we've done other cases where people have been abducted in the back. We talked about the ones in the Vanishing Triangle. A van's just parked up at the side of the road. The woman's walking past 200 meters or less from her front door, and someone grabs her and pulls her in the
grabs her.
van.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Okay.
that's a possibility. Who that is
That
another thing. It
okay.
could be him because he's in the area, but that also could be anyone.
Anyone. Okay, that's a possibility. So yeah, but I think it's this. If it would have been um, a opportunistic situation.
Yeah.
This is not a situation where they were scouting her out
No, I don't
or
think so.
scouting this street out.
No, I
This
don't
is
think so.
this had to have been opportunistic. She just happened to be there. He
Yeah.
just happened to be there.
Yeah.
Unlucky, right?
That's right.
So that's a possibility.
I think that's
Okay.
more
So
likely than her running away and having a life somewhere else. Because I think they would have taken the bike too to remove all
yeah,
trace of her.
yeah.
I think this seems opportunistic grab to me.
hmm Well, yeah, but you're as long as there was room in the car for the bike, you would take the bike.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true.
I think you're right. I don't know.
It's
It's a
frustrating, isn't
tough
it?
one.
Because there is nothing. There's no evidence at all. We've got no cars to check because he obviously, this was years later that they've discovered it could have been
Mhm.
him. So there's no vehicles to look over. They have taken Jeanette's DNA. They have got DNA so that if anything was ever uncovered, they could check to see if it's her. So
Yeah.
they have got samples of her DNA to establish whether or not any bodies or body parts found is her. Sad.
Oh, these cases are always really like creepy and scary,
Yeah,
right?
they
When
are.
it's a very small area.
Yeah.
It's really one way in, one way
One
out,
way out. That's right.
and how this can happen
Yeah.
in like this part of the country. It's
Yeah.
just
A blink of an eye as well. It's just,
is
she's
it
there and then she's just gone, completely gone.
is
So,
absolutely
yeah.
insane.
And obviously, like I said, it's, probably, I think it is probably Britain's longest running missing persons case. And we still
Uh,
have nothing. So, yeah, I'd like to hear what you think about this. If you have got any ideas, or I'm probably going to be screaming at my earphones when I re-listen to this back. So why didn't you say this?
mhm.
Why didn't you think of this? So what do you think? So message us on our Instagram or on our Facebook or Twitter, whichever way you like to message, and see if there's anything you think we're missing on this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Explain to me how Barry Moore did this.
Oh God, don't even get me started on that. This week there has been so many revelations on the whole Barrymore case, and we know that the police are very, very close to solving this and giving some respite to Stuart's family. And
Mhm.
just recently, Michael Barrymore has now got a TikTok page and is
You're kidding me.
now putting videos on TikTok and stuff like that. And they've turned off all the commenting on his YouTube page because people are asking awkward questions and obviously he's not answering. And that, to be fair, I think the net is closing in on the whole
Yeah.
Barrymore party participants. The net is closing in, and I don't think it's going to be long before we get an answer as to what happened that night. If you haven't already heard the story, if you're new to our podcast, go back and check out. In January, we did an episode on the death of Stuart Lubbock. We also followed that up with an interview with Stuart's first wife, and you can hear exactly what happened. And you will understand why this is so crazy. But a person had been arrested in connection with this, and we're waiting to hear the outcome. Still
Yeah.
waiting to hear the outcome.
I will mention Barrymore as a possible suspect in every one of these episodes
Everything until
he's charged for something. It was Barrymore.
it's always Barrymore in your views. So yeah, that's the case. So go and check that one out as well. And yeah, then that's a good one to listen to because it's infuriating and it
Very,
needs to be solved. And it can be solved because one of those, if not all of those people, know what happened that night. And in the case of Genette Tate, I think someone knows what happened, but I think the only person that knows what happened is the person that took her.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I don't think there are witnesses to this. I think this was something that happened in the middle of nowhere that I don't think anyone's gonna,
Very quickly.
Yeah, very
Very
quickly.
quickly. It's insane.
It's really sad. It's really, really sad. So that is this week's case. Yeah. And you have something for us now. You have something that's fun because we get told off if we forget.
I know. So how about we do a little dumb criminal?
Let's do it.
Hey, criminal, use a dummy.
You're right, Captain. He is.
This one is definitely a dummy. So it's occurred back in February, back in the great state of Florida, where every crazy criminal story happens. But there was a Michigan man who was caught by cops after he had allegedly urinated on a police car in Florida.
Oh, an idiot. Well, the police in
apparently, the police were in it. Apparently, the officers did throw the cuffs on him even before he had finished.
It's still dribbling. Oh, God. Oh, can you imagine? It's still going to be out, flopping about whilst he's... No. Oh, my God. My question is then, if he's in cuffs, who put it back in his pants?
Oh, that's a good question. We don't know, but according to the report, it says the defendant was taken into custody while still in the commission of a crime. So the 26-year-old David Marcel Lewis Johnson, he was busted at about 1 a.m. as he relieved himself on the bumper of a sergeant squad car in downtown St. Petersburg, Florida.
Of all the cars.
Yes. Now, Johnson, who lives outside of Detroit, was uncooperative with questioning, the affidavit stated, and he had pled not guilty to disorderly conduct and was freed after a relative posted his $250 cash bond.
That's an expensive wee.
Look, I know sometimes you just have to go.
But not on a police car.
Not on a police car.
Come on.
No. That is not the smartest place in the world.
That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
That's really embarrassing.
What a dummy.
What a dummy. If you're going to have a wee in public, make sure you do it not on a vehicle that's got 2 police officers in it. Stupid.
I cannot blame him. Sometimes you have to go.
No, I get it. Yeah.
But I can't blame him for doing it on a police car.
Well, I can blame him doing it on any car. You can't go and pee in a shop doorway or on someone's car or on someone's property. If you need to go, go up against a tree or in a bush.
Or something.
You know?
Or
down a drain.
This is a downtown area. There's probably hundreds of places that you could pee in private.
Yeah. Not... that's crazy.
Or as you said, wee. You can take a wee in private.
Do you not say that there?
Wee? No. That's like something like a little kid would say.
But like say
wee.
Like here, like pee would mean like piss, which is swearing. So we wouldn't say like you're gonna have a pee because it means like you're gonna go and
I gotta go piss. That's what we would say.
Which is not good, is it?
I gotta have a piss.
It's rude.
Is it?
Would you say that like in front of your family? Like no.
I would just say I'd have to go use the bathroom. I have to go use the bathroom.
Oh, okay. Oh, that sounds really posh. I need to go use the bathroom.
Really?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, next time I'm gonna be like, I'm gonna have to go take a wee.
You should. Well, I wonder what they'd say. They'd be like, a what?
A what? I got a wee and maybe a little poo. Just a little one.
And that's where we're going to end this week's show. Thank you for listening. Thank you for
Yes,
joining
thank
us
you.
this week. We will be back next week with a Morgan episode. So make sure you come back and check us there. Also, check out our merch store for the amazing new t-shirt that Morgan has just posted. It's really, really nice. So we're going to make sure that we've got these when we go to CrimeCon as well, because that will be fun. And we'll be
Absolutely.
modeling these for you so you can see what they look like on real people. And we will be back soon. So for now, be nice.
And bye.